Okay. In order to ensure that everyone can clearly hear our presenter and hopefully avoid any technical difficulties, I'll be muting everyone once we get started here. But I'll ask you to go ahead and please mute your line by pressing either *# or the mute feature on your desk phone or mobile device, whatever you're calling in on. We ask that you please share your questions, comments, reactions in the Q&A pod, which you'll find in the lower left-hand corner of the presentation screen once I switch to that. And I'll make sure to help field those along with Ashley either as we go along or at the end of the presentation. Again, we'll be sharing the recording, the transcript. Be sure to send out Ashley's presentation after, but you'll also be able to find that in our closing window in the file pod, again in the lower left-hand corner once we get to that last screen. And I think I'll go ahead and introduce our lovely speaker for today. Let me get our presentation screen up for us. So Ashlea Lantz is a senior consultant with Griffin-Hammis and Associates and a project coordinator and consultant with the Iowa Coalition for Integrated Employment. Previously, Ashlea was the director of employment at Candeo. Ashlea started there as a job developer and quickly moved into a management role. At Candeo, Ashlea developed high-performance employment teams specializing in individual-supported employment as well as customized employment. Under her leadership, Candeo's supported employment team became one of the largest community-based employment providers in Iowa, setting the expectation that employment is a reality for all. When Ashlea moved on from Candeo, the supported employment department had quadrupled in staff, outcomes, and revenue, and was supporting over 200 individuals and operating a nearly $1 million budget. Ashlea is the past president of Iowa APSLE and currently serves as a member of Iowa's Employment First Leadership team. Sorry, that's a mouthful. While working across the country as a subject matter expert for ODEP's various Employment First efforts. She's also a member of Iowa's Olmsted Consumer Task Force, serving as the employment chair for the task force. As we know, Ashlea is the sibling of a person with a disability, and based on that experience, she views family involvement and support as integral to success and employment outcomes. Indeed, she played a central role in the development of Iowa's first parent-family coalition. She received her certification in benefits planning from Virginia Commonwealth University, as well as earned the distinction of a Certified Employment Support Professional, or CESP, and recently graduated from the Drake Rehabilitation Counseling Program with her master's. So please welcome our friend and favorite mother-to-be, Ashlea Lantz.
Thanks, Jess. What a lovely introduction. None of those things, that Jess mentioned, I guess including having a baby, ever happen alone. So many thanks to everyone at Candeo who, they're the reason cool things happen. And it's just been a pleasure. And it's such an honor, I think, to be asked to speak within your own state. So hello to my friends and colleagues in Iowa. The odd thing is I'm actually joining you from Ohio today for the National ICIE Conference. So it's funny that, everyone confuses Iowa, Ohio, and Idaho, and now I'm in Ohio presenting to Iowa. So hopefully everyone is having a wonderful day, and thank you for carving out time to be together for an hour, because I know all of the jobs and careers that each of us are within are very time-consuming, and so just carving out an hour to spend some time about discovery and anything employment is not easy, so thank you. So let's dig into today's content. This is going to be, I believe, the third webinar where we've talked about discovery now in the Community of Practice series. So for some of you, it may feel like a review. Hopefully we're going to get more into the weeds than we have maybe in previous discovery conversations, and then also with everything changing within Iowa, looking at what funding mechanisms that we currently have, including the new rules, and what that looks like, and how do we fit discovery in that. So I know Leanne is on the call, and hopefully maybe Lynn and the other Leanne as well, to correct me if I give any advice that is not accurate with our current rule structure, and feel free to jump in as well. So We're going to touch on discovery briefly. We'll get into the weeds and then use some, look at some examples. So one of the things that we all know discovery is, and I think, it never gets old because it's the absolute basis of discovery, is that it's qualitative, it's competency-based, and it does fit the form of an assessment. It's not a traditional assessment, but as we deliver services through vocational rehabilitation and waiver services, traditionally we use an assessment, and discovery fits that mold of the assessment. But it's different because it's not comparative, it's not deficit-based, right? It's qualitative and it's competency-based. Additionally, we'll talk about the components of discovery. Specifically, we're really going to dig into the home visit. What does it look like? What does it feel like? How do I observe the skills and tasks of the individual I'm supporting? And how does that all build on top of each other and then lead us to job development? And again, how do we use our current funding structures to get us there? So customized employment, is defined by the Office of Disability Employment Policy. So what is customized employment? Customized employment means individualizing the employment relationship between employees and employers in ways that meet the needs of both. And so as employment professionals, I think we think to ourselves, well, gee, yeah, we do that all the time, right? But I think the big difference with customized is that we're really looking at the relationship that exists and that we develop between the individual we're supporting and the business that we're developing it with to really develop into this career for a person as opposed to competing with a job description. So also from ODEP, they produced this wonderful document. If you Google core components of customized employment, it will come up. And one of the pieces in there is it breaks down there are 4 distinct components of customized employment. And so I think no matter what model you're using, these 4 components stay true. We use discovery as a method, as a way to get to know someone at their best. And then that drives, what we learn from discovery drives the job search planning process. And then we get into job development, and then there's this really important piece, negotiation, right? So in order to label a placement as customized, we have to negotiate something because sometimes discovery will lead to wage employment, which is fine. But in order for us to consider it customized, it needs to be negotiated, right? And then we look at the post-employment supports for this person. So it's really broken up into 4 categories. And so many of you, and including my time at Candeo, we really looked at if we have a job developer who focuses strictly on customized employment or delivering that discovery service, what are the core competencies that this person should embody? So just a few of them is understanding customized job development, being open to new ideas, communicating with others. So you can use this document, I think, to really build upon it and show if you want to provide this service, here's what we're looking for, rather than feeling like you have to recreate the wheel. So no matter when you're delivering discovery, or if you're performing discovery right now with someone, or you just wrapped up great discovery, you should be able to answer these 3 questions. So who is the person? What are their ideal conditions for employment? We all have ideal conditions for employment. They are those non-negotiable things that you have to be successful in the environment. What allows you to be at your best? Is it a supportive team? Is it flexibility? Is it abbreviated or extended break times? Is it a flexible schedule? We all have them, and so we have to get to know through discovery what are someone's ideal conditions for employment, because that allows us to then make a really quality match. And then what are the themes that drive job development? So no matter what model you're using within customized, if you learn from Mark Golden Associates, or you're using the positive personal profile through Transcend, or you're using something through GHA, or whatever it is, that when we do discovery, we're not comparing someone to a job description, because then that becomes comparative. So we're just looking at where are a person's overarching interests or themes that drive employment. So we're not saying Joe wants to be a pilot, because a pilot is a job description, right? It's Joe's interested in aeronautical things, and we're not sure where that's going to lead us, but it's so much easier to come up with a bunch of different places that have anything to do with aerospace versus being a pilot. So the stages that we're going to look at are the home visit. How do we identify somebody's skills, interests, abilities, and conditions? And then we're going to spend a little bit of time of how do we build a team, and then some creative strategies that we can really utilize, such as resource ownership, and how do we really think outside the box to support someone to not only get a career, but also to get out of poverty, which is the ultimate goal. So who's discovery best for? Like, who's the best fit, right? So actually, discovery could be a benefit to anybody. It could be a benefit to you and I. Oftentimes I ask, what's the shortest job you've ever had? Because I think we oftentimes get into jobs that are not a good fit when we haven't done discovery on ourselves, or that self-reflection, or we're doing discovery and we realize, hey, I'm not really into that. So, but within the human services industry, we know that traditional methods don't always work for everyone, right? So traditional supported employment may not work for everybody, or filling out applications, or looking at the labor market and then looking for the job. So someone who's been looking for employment for an extended period of time would be a great fit for discovery. So my time as a job developer, I have supported individuals who may have been on my caseload for years, or looking for a job for years, and there was something I was missing. There was something, maybe I didn't spend enough time identifying their skills and their interests, or just connecting them with people who have like interests. But I was missing something because they were in job development for an extended period of time. Someone who has spent time in facility-based environments for an extended period of time as well. And some of these you'll find in the Vocational Rehabilitation Provider Manual as well. I think it might even be on page 23. That's a guess. It's not in front of me. Someone who's also had limited life experience. So say that I'm a young adult and I've been through school, but I didn't participate in the educational learning, the EDCE program that I get to kind of dabble in work experiences. So maybe I just really have no idea what I want to do. Also, maybe I've had various employment opportunities, but I've really struggled to maintain that employment. So if I look like a traditional job hopper on paper, maybe it's not that I'm just job hopping, it's because I haven't found the right fit. So we also have to consider those folks as a great fit for discovery as well. Someone who has no prior work experience, someone who's been identified as unemployable in the past, and that discovery and customized is not disability specific. So we may think of discovery as the best fit for individuals who experience a significant level of impact of disability or intellectual or developmental disabilities, but it also can be a great fit for individuals who experience mental illness. It can be, as Doug Crandall talked about, you can even braid models between IPS and customized employment. So really it can be a good fit for anyone. It's not disability specific, but I think these are some components to really look at who's a good fit. If I come to you and say, well, I have previous work experience in being a administrative assistant, I would like to say, I'm probably not going to be the best fit for discovery because I've already got a really clear path and evidence of why I want to stay in this career field. So let's start getting into the weeds a bit. So the home visit is the first step of discovery, essentially. And so where does the home visit fit? And I think, where does it fit within the system? So one of the things that I think naturally occurs within every organization is that you have an intake process or an admissions process, right? So you go out and or the individual comes to you, maybe you interview them, you've received, the application for your services, and then you get more information and then decide, can we best support this person with our services? So one of the things that was naturally taking place at Candeo is that we were doing our admissions in the client's home already. So essentially, the home visit was already taking place as part of our admissions process. So whether or not you're authorized for discovery is, and maybe you don't need to do full-on, discovery, but the home visit can also, you can build in the philosophy and components of customized employment within your current systems already. So is it possible that you could already build that within your orientation and intake process so that you're really getting to know, no matter what service they're applying for, you're getting to know them in the environment that they identify as, where they're most comfortable. Additionally, you can also do the home visit within career exploration, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. Within job development. So even if you're just authorized for job development hourly services, you can still choose to do, the home visit right away. And then certainly when you're authorized for discovery, initially with the discovery authorization with Voc Rehab. So just to be creative and look at your own internal systems of where does it fit. So what is the home visit? It's the first step in discovery, and I'm pretty adamant about that just because it's the environment of where we're learning about who someone is. And so when you think about yourself, where are you most comfortable? What environment highlights you at your best? And for many of us, that's our home because we decorate it, we design it, we get to pick what it looks like. And it's the first way to assess really who a person is. And so what we're gathering in the home visit is really the foundation of what builds discovery, because we can absorb so much information in really a quick amount of time around who somebody is. And we always encourage the job seeker to invite others who know the job seeker at their best. So that might be parents, that might be family members, friends, colleagues, and for some individuals that may be a couple of friends, or maybe I've only had paid professionals in my life, then okay. Then whoever knows you best, we want at that meeting, because the whole purpose of the meeting is to learn about who you are. So what does it look like and it feel like? So I think when you're new at discovery, it's easy to create, this, okay, well, if I've got to learn who someone is, then, I should go in with all of these questions. Well, actually, the home visit is not an interrogation. There's no standard form of questions that you're essentially asking, right? So there's some guidance, but in order to build rapport and trust, which is essentially what we want to do in this process, we have to allow it to be a comfortable environment. So it's really more about a conversation and us doing all of the listening because no information is insignificant. So we're really looking at just tell me about who you are. Tell me about how you spent your day yesterday. Where do you frequent? How do you spend your money? Oftentimes, this is also going to be, you can plan for an hour to 2 hours, depending upon how many people are there, how chatty the job seeker is. Your plan 1 to 2 hours. And then oftentimes, this may be scheduled on an evening or a weekend, because maybe that's when family, friends, colleagues, the people who know this person at their best are available. So what that means for us is we're going to have to be flexible with our own schedules as well, but it's always worth it because the information we're getting is so rich that it's worth making sure that you're available that couple of hours in the evening or the weekend. And So I think looking at your internal structure to make sure that that's allowable, and that's the expectation. So also, a home visit feels like a pizza party. Now, it doesn't have to be a pizza party. I have been to home visits where they are a pizza party, and they're great, but that is not a requirement. But it should feel conversational. It should feel relaxed and not structured. It shouldn't feel like a formalized meeting. And we know that the best way to get to know someone is in their environment, not ours. So I am not at my best when I'm going to someone else's environment and sitting across from them at their desk. As professionals in the field, we can all really capture information about someone that we don't normally capture when they come to our office when we go to an environment that highlights them at their best. So as you set up the home visit, you're meeting with this person, what are the next steps? So you want to explain what the home visit is, what discovery is. This is a different process that we're going to use to get to know who Joe is. And it's all about getting to know Joe and others who know him at his best. So how do we do, so we do that by bringing everybody together and we learn from you. So we're not even going to start looking for jobs until we've completed this discovery process, because it's all about Joe, and what we learn from Joe and the others who know him best then drives the job development process. So not the labor market, Joe drives the process. And so we want to let teams know this is going to feel different than a traditional meeting that we're used to. And so let people know. But other than that 10 or 15 minutes where we're describing the process, then we say, Joe, tell me about you. Tell me about what you did yesterday. And just let the conversation go where it needs to. So when we schedule the home visit, again, we're looking at 2 hours. It's the environment where the person is most comfortable. Yes, the exception to the rule is that some folks are not at their best at home. And I supported a gal a couple of months ago who said, you know, absolutely no way, you're not coming to my home. I'm not comfortable with it. I'm not comfortable with you meeting my family. And we say, okay, that's totally fine. Where would you like to meet? Where would you feel comfortable in connecting with us? And so we still allow the job seeker to drive where that environment is. So the home visit is happening, right? So what do you talk about? Because you don't have this like structured Q&A process, right? So have a conversation about what are Joe's daily routines? What might be chores or household responsibilities that he's completing? Yesterday when we were presenting at ICIE, we were talking about this same thing, and one person said, well, I did the home visit and I learned that the job seeker was not doing any household chores. Well, that's just as valuable as knowing that this person does or does not do chores, right? And so what does that say about the environment and the supports that her family provides to her? And how can we support the family in encouraging her to take more responsibility around the home? Also, activities the person enjoys or engages in. And we also want to know the history of the family and the individual, particularly around employment. So that's when we start seeing similarities or themes, because then we hear that, okay, well, Joe's really passionate about working with motors, but then we find out that Dad used to be a mechanic back in the day, and before that, Joe's grandpa was the head mechanic at Toyota or something. So we end up seeing these connections, but if we don't have the conversation with the parents and the family and others who know this person really well, we might miss that information. So also, before you leave the home visit, if there's any way, you want to try and get a picture of, or you want to go and see the individual's bedroom, because that may also be the only place in the house that they get to entirely decorate on their own. If they're still living with mom and dad, if they're living in a group home and the common space is more of a group effort than an individual effort, ask to see their room. And so you don't have to do that by like this interrogation sense of, can I please see your room? Because that can be creepy, right? But it's more of you're having this conversation. For example, I met a guy a couple of months ago. He was telling us about the importance of his family pets and this love of like collector basketball shoes. And so I said, wow, do you have any of those here? Well, sure, they're in my room. Cool, like any chance you could show those to us? Yeah, come on downstairs. And then we get to see his room. And then I see pictures of his family on the wall, and I say, wow, can you tell me about who these people are? Well, yeah, this is my mom and my dad, and they couldn't be here today, but now I know, okay, well, how often do you see them? You know, can we talk to them? Can we get some more information? So it's a conversation versus, okay, now I need to see your room. Can you please show me your room? And so what we learn about the home visit then drives the next process. So that's why it's really important to spend some quality time around the home visit. So we want to keep the conversation going. So as the smooth listening or the active listening, just try repeating one word in the statement that was defining that they shared with you. Well, that was a really important time in our life. Oh, that was an important time. That immediately triggers the person to tell you more without you saying, oh, that's interesting, or that was great. Because even when we say that's interesting, that could trigger the person to think, oh, well, they want me to, you know, continue to talk about this topic, or this is what's important. We just want to get information. Sometimes asking the question, tell me a little bit about yourself, is too big. So we say, tell me about your day yesterday. You know, that's fairly fresh in somebody's mind. What did you do? And then say, okay, well, tell me more about, you know, do you often spend every day at the library? Do you go see your grandma every day? Or was it just Tuesday? And so that warms up the conversation. Tell me about your family, your friends. How often do you see them? What do they do for a living? Where do you go spend your money? You know, where do you go shopping? And then ask family and friends to tell me about your son or daughter. What does this person enjoy doing or get joy from doing? Where are they at their happiest? Are they involved in church? Are they involved in service clubs, social clubs? We want to get all of that information. So by the end of the home visit, the idea is that you've got an idea. It's not confirmed yet, but we've got a pretty good idea of what this person's skills might be, what their interests are, some abilities, and an idea about their conditions and their contributions for employment. So even while you're sitting through the presentation, be thinking about what are your skills, what are your interests, what are your abilities and conditions and contributions. And you know, it's interesting to start writing some of those down, because I think if we're asking people to do that, if we've experienced that ourselves, it makes us much more understanding and I think even competent in delivering the service. So this is an example, and any of you who have heard me yammer about discovery before, you've probably heard me talk about this young man who is a chicken aficionado. He's brilliant. He knows everything about chickens, and he's just left a really big impact on me. And when I first met him, when we entered his home, he lives in a group home, so the common areas are pretty, they're comfortable, but I wouldn't say that they really highlight him other than he's got a cat. But then as soon as he takes us to his bedroom, he has, the walls are full of chickens and more, not like live chickens, but like paper mache chickens that he's created to replicate a picture of a chicken that he saw in a book. He has plants hanging all over, you know, little seedlings that he's starting off, and I remember spider plants hanging up, and he also has these books that line the shelves, and some of them are collector's books. And so if you were at my house and you saw the books, some of them would look untouched. But if you were at his house, the books you could tell had been open and he had read them, and you know, he had little like paper tags sticking out like bookmarks, and so it really captured who he was and what was important to him, and family photos, and then he takes us outside, which is where this picture was taken, and he introduces us to his chickens. And behind him, if you could blow up this picture, right directly behind his head is a chicken coop that he built and designed. And so we asked him to walk us through that process. And so to see mechanically, okay, well, how did he design this? What was going through his mind when he built this chicken coop? And so we get a really clear picture of who this person is, and his conditions are to be with plants and animals, and he's got this really strong interest in agriculture and in avian studies. So we get a picture of who the person is. So also don't forget, while you're at the home visit, look around the person's neighborhood. There are businesses that exist with no signs out. Ask the person if they generally, oh, well, I walk every day. Could I join you for a walk? And let's see, do they see people along their walk? Do they know what businesses are there? Is it residential? Is there close transportation available? Are they waving at neighbors right and left? Because then that tells you, okay, well, maybe there's some relationship there, and who's that? And you get to see them often. And so it's one really easy step that doesn't take long that also gives us some information. So in the home visit, it's also really important to ask, who else can we talk to that knows you really well? And I think this step often gets skipped over. Maybe we just complete the home visit and then jump into activities. So we want to make sure that we talk to other people who know the person well, because it builds upon the picture of the home visit. It helps us fill in details of who this person is. And so oftentimes, again, it will fill in the gaps of maybe stories that the person has shared in the home visit and expand our perspective of who the person is. So if you ask me to tell you a little bit about myself, I can say so much, but if you ask my husband, my sister, my mom, you get a much bigger picture of who I am as a person. For the chicken guy, once we have a conversation with others who know him really well, we start getting the gaps filled in and understanding that he grew up with chickens. His parents had chickens. His parents were farmers. And so it's really easy to now connect, okay, well, that's where that interest was maybe established, right? So having those conversations with other people who know the person at their best builds upon our picture, which then drives job development. And so who do we interview? That could be parents, grandparents, siblings, cousins, and they don't have to be local. It could be a phone conversation that you're having with the person who knows this person at their best, and I'm nearly positive that you can bill for that as well. So friends, teachers, doctors, therapists, it's anyone the person identifies. So you're asking them, and if sometimes asking can be too direct, so through the home visit, who do they keep talking about? Who do they keep mentioning? And say, oh, well, do you spend a lot of time with your friend Jill? Well, yeah, I do. I see her, once a week. Well, would you say that Jill knows you pretty well? Yeah, she's one of my closest friends. Okay, well, could we talk to Jill and just get her perspective on, who you are and what you're good at? Oh, sure, not a problem. And then you want to get a release of information, of course, and make sure you're not breaking any HIPAA rules and regulations, but then go have a conversation with Jill about who Joe is. And also, it's a no judging zone. So we're not there to judge parents, family, friends, or relationships. We are only there to get information. So similar to the home visit, you're going to schedule the interview. You want to explain the discovery process. Joe's looking for a job, or as you may know, Joe is looking for a job. And one of the processes that we use to get to know Joe is this process called discovery. And so we really want to get to know him from the people who know him best. And he said that you are one of those people. So I'm just hoping to have a conversation with you about who Joe is, and what you envision for Joe, and to tell us a little bit about yourself as well. I assure you it won't take more than an hour of your time. Could we meet for lunch or meet for coffee, or whatever. So you want to make sure that you explain the process to the person so that you're setting the expectation of what we're doing here. Also, as you interview others, what are things that you want to be looking for? So you're looking for patterns that might be emerging. You're looking for details to get filled in. Also, is there new information being presented from this person that was not highlighted in the home visit? Do you find something out that is, you're like, whoa, like I didn't know that Joe has been going to the same restaurant every Sunday at noon with the same group of people for 10 years. Okay, that's big information because that's 10 more people who know Joe, and that's a network of people. And how can we tap into that network of people who know him really well? So what does this tell you about the person? So we want to start looking at what's emerging and what's connecting through those conversations. So we're moving through this very quickly, but we've done the home visit. We've gotten some really strong foundational information on who this person is. We've talked to other people, which is confirmed and either provided us new information or added in details of what we needed to learn about the person in the home visit. And so from there, we've kind of got some themes emerging or some patterns. So now we get to the point where we want to see Joe in action. We want to see him performing tasks and skills. So that means I have to make sure that what I'm going to observe ties to something that I've learned about him in the home visit or interviewing others. So if Joe meets with this group every Sunday at noon, maybe I could ask if I could go and see, if he would give me permission to be part of that, group one time just to observe. Or maybe Joe mows lawns every single week, and he mows his family's lawn, and he mows his grandma's lawn, and 3 neighbors on the block. Okay, well, I want to see Joe perform that skill or that task. So I want to observe him in a new or unfamiliar activity or an activity that's routine, both ideally, to be able to look at what are his skills, his tasks, his interests, his conditions, and what are his support needs. Is there anyone supporting him to mow the lawn? So what I want to learn is, okay, so when Joe mows the lawn, when does he do it? Does he get the lawnmower out on his own? Does he start it, get on it, get the blade to the perfect level, and then he gets out and doesn't miss a spot, and by the end, you may come back 2 hours later, and you see that the lawn is immaculately, looks like a golf course lawn. That's a skill. Or is it that Joe's dad comes out, or brother, or mom, or sister, and helps him set up the lawnmower, and then he gets on the lawnmower and then mows the lawn. But maybe he misses a couple of areas. Okay, well, we could probably teach Joe how to not miss those spots or to get around or trim around the trees. But there's no other way to get that rich information about the skills and the tasks he's already performing without observing those. So when we first start learning how to do discovery, I think one of the things that happens is that we'll set up activities that don't necessarily correlate with what we've learned about the person so far. And so it may not correlate, or also we're going versus doing. So if I'm going to the facility or the day hub site, one, we're not putting a lot of weight on the information that we're receiving from a facility-based setting. We really want to see a person in their most natural environment, which is usually outside of those settings. So I've also heard going to the movies, going to the mall, going to the grocery store. Well, what is leading you to these activities? What did you learn about Joe in the home visit that's driving you to observe him doing this versus making something? I want to see Joe doing something. So even, for example, I supported a gentleman who had like this emerging theme of baking. So he doesn't use a lot of words to communicate, but anytime his staff would talk to him about baking, he kind of lit up and maybe watched some baking shows, and they thought that, okay, well, yeah, like baking could be something. And so we set up an opportunity for him at home to make cookies from scratch. And so we used systematic instruction approaches to support him to make the cookies, and we just wanted to see, how does he measure it? Does he use the recipe? Is it a pinch of that or a dash of that, or is he really meticulously paying attention to how all of the ingredients go together Then we designed the cookies. And so from there, because he was not typically engaged for more than 20 minutes, and this process probably took us an hour and 15, and he was engaged throughout the entire time. The other piece they didn't tell us was that this is usually during his like rest and relax time at home and during like snack time. So we had a fairly regimented schedule, but the fact that he was engaged and we were totally tearing up his usual schedule really told us that he was into this, right? And so then how could we connect him with a local bakery and then ask maybe to go observe or to even allow him to even, could he decorate a cookie or be a part of that process sometime as a job shadow or a job trial. Again, maybe you hear that Joe is fixing cars with his dad on the weekend. We want to see him doing that. And so then we take pictures of him doing these things, and then that builds into our visual profile or our visual resume. So as you can see, each step builds upon the next. And so the biggest piece in skill and task observation is that it has to tie to what I'm learning about him in the home visit and interviewing others, and that it's doing, not going. So I put this up here, and maybe some of you have seen this before, but I always ask, so what does ice cream, coffee, bunnies, kittens, and babies and puppies all have in common? Well, they're general human interests. So oftentimes I hear people, how many of us as job developers have heard, well, I'd really love to work with pets and I'd really love to work with babies, right? And it's like, okay, you and 8,000 other people. But I think the piece that we're missing there is for most people that, yeah, okay, babies are cute, puppies are cute. That doesn't mean that for some people, yes, that, that's a big interest and it runs through their blood, right? But we want to set up skill and task observation to confirm that. Pam, I see your note. Do you take notes during the whole visit? That is a phenomenal question. So for personally, myself, I have, I feel like a horrible memory, so I will take a very small notebook and a pen, and I will just jot down bullet points that will help trigger my memory so that I don't miss something that was maybe really important. If you have a rock-solid memory, I would recommend not taking notes. So my boss, Carrie at GHA, doesn't take anything with him. And he can, go and capture it all afterwards. But I'll take a small little notebook with me. But you're not taking, a computer jotting down all of the notes or anything. So it's pretty relaxed. So back to the interest, it's just general human interest, right? So you've got to dig further beyond puppies, babies, and ice cream. So with skill and task observation, a task is a series of actions that complete a process. So milking a cow has multiple skills that build up the task, right? So we're looking also for the best teaching and support strategies. So how is the parent, how is the family member, how is the friend supporting this person in the process? Also, we're looking, how does this person process information? Oftentimes when we're doing skill and task observation, we want to put our hands in our pockets and just observe. We just want to soak in the information versus asking questions throughout the process, because then we're changing the experience. So also we want to try new but related tasks. So again, what's related to what we're learning about this person, and where is the environment? When we do a new environment, that may emulate how this person may process or experience the first day of work. So be thinking about where else do these or similar tasks make sense. So this leads to future observation. So within career exploration, it talks about observing different environments. So this is a process that you can use within that service authorization. So where else might it make sense to observe this person? Also, interests help find a direction for employment, but really we know it's the skill that really is what we can sell to the business, right? And where it's not selling, we're really matching. But interests give us a a pathway to identify. So if we just connect people with like interests, it's amazing about what can happen. When we connected the chicken guy with someone who had a like interest, he now has a mentor and is considering self-employment because of this mentor. She's not going to employ him, but she's leading him to employment because now she's someone with a like interest who he can connect to and go for advice and give him more information about this world of chickens and how can he make money at it. So we use discovery to uncover the person's skills and those skills that can be developed. So again, we're also looking at what can be developed, what can we teach somebody. But even say you have an interest, Joe has an interest in motors. How can you connect him with someone else who is interested in the same thing? So time is flying by. One of the things when it comes to informational interviews, so you want to connect with people to do observations. How do we know this person is their best? And then connect them with people who have like interests, and we're just going in asking for advice. You're just going to go and say, I hear you're the best motor place in town, and I'm working with a job seeker who also is super passionate about this, and I just want to pick your brain and get some advice. Could Joe and I come over and do that for 20 minutes? So then you're just connecting people and you're building relationships. So if you remember back to the definition, it's about the relationship. When we do informational interviews, I just want to point out, go to local businesses. Stay away from your big box stores. Go to local artisanal businesses. So if you're in a rural community, this is like your, focus area, right? So you're surrounded by small businesses, and we all are. It's just finding them. So stay local. Set up an informational interview. I'll let you browse through these slides on your own. But again, it's a conversation. It's about building the relationship. When it comes to a visual profile, as opposed to using a paper resume where we fill out information about, okay, here are all the things that I've done, but if I have no previous work experience, that paper resume is going to be pretty short. But if you can capture me doing things that we've done in in the skill and task observation, we can build a visual profile for me that also gives me more ownership of what I'm showing a potential business. So here's an example of Brittany's slideshow, one of the slides of her visual resume that she's allowed with me to incorporate into the presentation today that really talks about who she is. So one of the other things that I want you to think about is once we've started building a relationship with a business, how do we, for many of us, maybe you went to college and you spent $30,000 or $40,000 on a degree, and you take that to your business that you want to work with, and you say, I can do this job because I have this degree, I studied this, right? But for many of the folks that we support, they don't have the opportunity to go to college. And so what resources do they bring to the business that says, I can do the job? So for many folks that we support, they have the opportunity to utilize PASS plans, and they have resources at their fingertips. PASS, a plan essential or plan for achieving self-support. Connect with your local benefits planners in the area. Voc Rehab has benefits planners, as well as Disability Rights Iowa and some organizations as well, particularly those in Polk County. And connect with a benefits planner, because if I can purchase a resource and take that to the business, then I can help increase their profits. So this is an example of an individual we had the opportunity to work with through the ICIE project in Sioux City, and we did an informational interview with this company called Caturra Coffee Roasting, and we found out that this roaster, they're going to outgrow this roaster shortly. So while I'm skipping ahead, and one of the ideas that we could look at for this job seeker is, what if he purchased a roasting machine that he could also roast coffee within their business and help increase their profits? So be thinking about, as you do informational interviews, ask businesses, where's business going in the next 5 years? What is your next big investment? What is up and coming in the industry? And use that opportunity for resource ownership to have that person bring more skills to the table. Also, it can, as you're completing discovery, it may lead to self-employment, and if so, having conversations with your VR counselor around that as well. But it leads you to that, not necessarily where you come into the process and say, I want to open up my own business. So when we're doing discovery, sometimes the outcome is not customized, and that's okay. So it might be typical wage employment where I end up competing with a job description, which is A-okay, but 9 times out of 10, that's going to be such a better fit for who I am as a person. And that's the process paid off, right? It could also be a carved position. It could be a customized internship. It could be resource ownership, like we just talked about, self-employment, a business within a business. So there are a variety of outcomes that the discovery can lead to. So now, with only 7 minutes left, we're going to talk about the funding processes that we have within Iowa. So if we're looking at the voc rehab process, we refer to voc rehab oftentimes, or maybe they're referring to us, but if we refer to them, which I think many agencies are in the position to do so, we complete the referral information. The voc rehab counselor needs to do the intake, and then they also do the assessment and the eligibility. So it's different from traditional waiver, which many of us are used to, but that the counselor has to assess and identify what in the menu of services is going to align with what I know about this person. So as the provider, the more information that we can provide the counselor, the better. Because one, that's going to assist with eligibility and intake, the more information that we can provide to them. But if the individual comes to the VR counselor and already has an intention of what they're interested in, the counselor is going to put the resources to start there. But if I come to the table and I'm not sure what I want to do, and I say I really have no idea, I absolutely know I want to work, but I'm really not quite sure what I want to do, then that may trigger the counselor to say, this could be a great candidate for discovery. But if I go in and I say, well, I'm really interested in, chickens and working with plants, the counselor is going to ask that you explore that first, most likely. So it's different than where within waiver, then oftentimes the referral is coming to us as the provider, and then we complete our intake and then ask for the authorization. With VR, the counselor needs to make the assessment, and then we have a conversation about what those next steps might look like. So with funding in our system, we know with 24 and under, we start with voc rehab due to the memorandum of agreement between DHS and IVRS, and then we use long-term coaching services for the long-term supports, which then we access waiver. For those 24 and above, we can utilize career exploration, job development, long-term coaching, primarily all under waiver. So as we break this out with 24 and under, say I complete the referral to voc rehab, they do the eligibility, and then we come together as a team and look at what is the service delivery going to look like and what out of the menu of services is going to be authorized for us as the provider to deliver the service. So again, if someone goes in and already has intentions of what they're interested in, what they want to do, the counselor is going to drive our focus there first. Versus if I'm unsure of what I want to do, that would be a trigger for discovery. And then we do job development. Of course, the person finds a great job, and we look at long-term coaching support. So one thing, please, please, please look at the reference guidebook. The link is just below the information, and use that resource. There was lots of time and energy that went into that resource. Lynn and Leanne did a phenomenal job with the 3 L's. And putting that together. So use that as a resource to help walk you through the process as well. I think particularly we have a really great opportunity with individuals 24 and over in utilizing and building in career exploration. So even if you are not traditionally a pre-vocational provider, you can now use career exploration, which has 34 hours that are authorized within 90 days. And all of the components of career exploration align with discovery. So I know that the rates are not what everybody wanted it to be around that, but it's still a service that we haven't been paid for in the past, right? So if you use all 34 hours of career exploration, that's $1,200, right? And then we can then move into job development, and we have 40 hours initially that we could bill for, and an additional 20 if needed. And so if you have a really good reason why you need those extra 20 hours because, you know, you're cultivating this great partnership that's going to involve resource ownership and a task plan, you know, I can't see why that wouldn't be authorized. We can bring in over $5,000 for a service. So as a provider, a previous provider, I believe that should meet most of our costs, and it's certainly more than $955 and a placement fee that we may be used to. And then the really, really cool thing, and if you talk to organizations, I know Candeo has experienced this, and organizations across the country, that when we're using discovery and really doing it well, we make this really great job match, and then job coaching decreases. And within our new funding structure, if we're in the lower tier model, you're getting the more bang for your buck, right? None of us are out there to get rich. We just want to meet our costs. Within the tier structure, I am more incentivized for providing fewer supports. So why not use a process that's naturally and proven that's going to get us there if we make the right match that is going to reduce our coaching amount? So again, yeah, I think it's a huge opportunity for us to continue to monitor and to look at how coaching decreases when we use customized. And again, there will always be exceptions to the rule in folks who may need more extensive coaching. So this is an example straight from the brilliant minds of Jeff and Leanne, who looked at the career exploration process and how it could be broken out. And so I think you'll see alignment, particularly in what we've talked about today with the home visit, task and skill observation, and informational interviews, and then also having 4 hours of time. It doesn't have to be 4 hours of time, but it's allocated within that career exploration that you get to put the plan together, because capturing the information is just as essential as well, you know, no matter what form you're using. So make sure that you capture that information as you go through the process. So we are 2 minutes from wrapping up our time together. I think that was the fastest hour ever. And yeah, just greatly appreciate everyone carving out time today. And please let me know if you have any questions.
Thank you, Ashley. I want to share, it looks like Leanne shared some information here. It says the funding agreement between IVRS and waiver is for IVRS to serve individuals who are 23 and under, with the waiver serving those 24 and over for supported employment services, which include job development, customized employment, and job coaching. If a person needs other employment services such as discovery, career exploration, job shadowing, etc., IVRS provides services regardless of age. So that's, again, really helpful in clarifying information.
Yeah, thanks, Leanne.
Yeah, thank you very much. As we kind of wrap up here, does anybody else have any questions or comments? I don't want to switch out of this page too quick. Well, if I do, here, I'll switch to our closing page as we wrap up here. If you have any questions or comments as we wrap up here, go ahead and share them in the pod you see there at the bottom where we share our names and locations. Share it in there, and we'll make sure if we don't get it answered right now on the call, we'll get an answer and get that sent back out. I'm going to go ahead and open up the evaluation or poll questions for everybody and draw your attention here to the bottom where we have Ashlea's PowerPoint discovery available, that you just saw, but I'll be sure to send that out as well. And then we went ahead and also attached the fee for service schedule, or the new service fee schedule, just to be sure, since it was referenced during the presentation. I have an idea that a lot of people have already seen it, but just to be sure, we wanted to share that again. So please let us know your feedback. Again, let us know if you have any other questions or thoughts. and we'll get those addressed the best we can. Thank you again, Ashley, for joining us today and digging a little deeper into discovery and kind of what that process looks like and tying it to our funding structures for us. I know that's very helpful, and a lot of folks have asked kind of what does that really look like, and really have asked for some solid examples, and I think you did a good job of that, so we appreciate that. We will be back in July, and in case you didn't see the notice that went out, our date has changed for July. Originally, we were scheduled for July 19th, and now we are scheduled for July 26th. It's still a Tuesday, that last Tuesday in July, and we're going to have Paige Easton and Miss Leanne Russo joining us to talk about WIOA Section 511 and the partnerships and implementation and the impact to providers, as well as schools and educators. So we hope you can join us for that. Again, that's going to be July 26th at our same time, 1 p.m. I'll be sure to send out a reminder, and I will be sure to send out all the information from today's webinar as well. Everybody have a good rest of the day, and we'll see you soon. Thanks again, Ashley.
Great. Thanks.